So I was trying to watch Cowboy Bebop with my girlfriend, but she didn't want to hang out with me. So I was lonely. And there I was sitting at my desk listening to Feist. And then I remembered, let's get in and just get to modeling. So bringing in the next piston. I know these pistons are kind of boring, but that's what happens when you reference a photo. It's just boring. It just hit me that, referencing photos is just so boring. And I'm not going to go into a whole rant on that, but I mean, come on, look at this thing. This thing's nothing. The last piston was nothing. We have to start adding our own fun to these things because otherwise it's not. We do want to bring this down, but we also want to control click on curve extract to extract this into its own piece. And then we'll extrude it up to about here. And we'll just match the bevel that we're seeing in the image. And I was looking at this, I was like, man, why even do a video on this? This thing is so basic. God. I even wrote the guy I'm working with on all these pistons, and I was like, man, we gotta find some cooler pistons, man. So, you in the comments, if you got some cool pistons, let's see them. But I am looking at these things, and on a design level, I am just like, oh. I mean, the first one was fun because we were looking at the cross section, but with this one, I have no idea what's going on inside of it. The guy I'm working with is like briefing me. He's like letting me know about the fluid and that fluid's being pumped, and I'm just trying to gain a better understanding of it, because if you're gonna be using hydraulics all over your work and actuators, you should have some understanding of why. And off camera, I do have this book that sits by my PlayStation area that I spend a bit of time looking at, that just talks about the history of humanity and robotics. And one of the first things I read in this book, it's like a college textbook. It's super boring, but because it's about robots, obviously I'm there. But robots were made all the way back in like feudal Japan, and they were like doing all sorts of stuff, like just coming out and playing whistles. It's just nuts where robot technology has gone. There's like chess playing robots in the Renaissance. I mean, not a lot of them, but just robotics is a thing pretty old. And so I always thought clockwork was like something new, but apparently humans have mastered and understood time for a long time. I was having a discussion with someone, and I was like, facetiously talking about how all of our theories and science is like dictated by people in the past. Like, so far in the past, they didn't have iPhones, they didn't have computers. So what's up with that? It's just an anomaly. Also, trying to make that work is also an anomaly. It's just not going to work. So what are we going to do? I'm going to insert a plane, rotate it 90, scale it up, bring this over. We are going to delete this edge, which turns this into a hollow, like the ones that Ichigo kills. Also, Bleach is coming back, in a big way. I always said jokes about that in the past, but Bleach is actually now coming back. My understanding of Bleach was that the creator was basically being driven to work on it almost against his will, and he had long run out of passion for it. But I'm glad to hear that he's back at it. Let's press Alt V and look at the wireframe just to see what we're about to be adding in. And I'm going to go to the curve settings, and we could just lower the resolution to something that we actually do want. So let's actually get it to fit in the area that we were trying for. And I know when it comes to handles, I'm so lazy in workflow, but it's just experience, because it's just easier. Like what I'm doing right now, just way easier. Let's turn on Vertemergy, because Vertemergy is just a party animal. Born to party. Vertemergy. Blender, if they ever took out Vertemergy, I would riot in the streets. It'd be like Windows refund day, where everybody tried to refund their copy of Windows. quite unsuccessfully, might I add, because Microsoft isn't trying to give refunds. Also, I want to just mirror this below, even though all this that we have isn't actually needed. You know, we can just get rid of that, but I do want to repeat that. And you know, I'm always using reinforcement loops and things like that, but we don't have to work that way. That's just the way I like to work. But you, of course, can, you know, keep things more formal, you know, deal with creases and stuff like that. I was just thinking about whether I should go that route, and, you know, I just realized probably, why not? It'll be easier, but crease always, you know, gets to me at the end. At the end, I'm like, dang, you crease, why you gotta be that way? You know, for example, we crease this. Let's mirror it below, undoing what we just did. Let's also hit it with S sharpen, but I'm gonna raise my sharpness to maybe 45 degrees, so that way it marks less of that. Look, that didn't even work out. And the thing about S sharp is I never change the parameters. I would rather go in edit mode and manually select edges and mark them instead of dealing with sharpen being solid, because just like bevel, I don't want to solely the defaults. The defaults just do the job. We press Alt V, we look at this, we added our handle. You know, we talked about it for so long, didn't we? So this area, you know, there's another one down here. You know, maybe showing me solving some of these basic problems is assistive to you guys, but I'm telling you, like, at first I was like, yeah, I could do this. I can just, you know, do these type of parts all the time to correct the wrongs, because, you know, I'm always talking about shape libraries and having shapes in your mind to recall, but, you know, I never demonstrated how I get those shapes, and it's purely through this sort of stuff. In fact, we don't even have to work it in the shape like we're doing. So I'm just going to extract this, and we are going to just merge at center. I'm still, well, that's not center. That one is center. And let us go ahead and just, you know, clear this out. We're just going to pretend like we did not just do that, because I mean, look at the part. Who cares if I have it penetrate the surface or not? You know, the piston pulleys are going to come for me. I'm so sick of this. No, I'm kidding. Just big piston. They don't want you to know. That's why they sabotaged my ABC. They didn't want y'all to know how a piston works. Just kidding. I'm sure there's actually way better examples than myself. So looking at this piece, it's not as round as I would think it is. We're also going to just mark this fully sharp, and let's also flatten this on the Y. And let's flip it. We'll re-extrude it, just ensure that it's completely straight. And I know I'm just taking forever on this. I should just really pick up the pace. Sorry about that. Like, I don't even know if we're going to UV and deal with this, because I mean, literally, this thing is just trivial. Let's shift click EM macro. Shift click EM macro. Something like that. We'll sharpen it, which will give us an edge we didn't want, and probably another edge we didn't want somewhere. Let's also make sure our normals are facing the correct direction. I know we can't see it, but I just feel it in my heart, and I can see it in my soul, which is what Cole the band would say. Or not the actual, not actually Cold, not Cold, Scooter Ward and his Breakoff band, the Magician and his something, I forget the name. You know, I follow these alternative bands like really crazy close, like a stalker. You know, I'm not like going to their shows or anything, because I keep going to shows and I end up with these situations where like a weird guy will just stare at me. And I mean, it's not like I'm there with my girlfriend, obviously, so, you know, can't take me home, bro. But they'll just be staring at me. You know, they'll not even be facing the show. They'll just turn around and just be looking at me. It's like, dude, what is this? What is this? You know, I'm not trying to challenge you, man. I'm trying to enjoy this band on my bucket list. Let's select this, and I just wanted to toggle cyclic, so that way we can take our mesh that we converted into a curve and just begin extruding it. You know, it kind of sucks we have to deal with it as a curve. We probably could have done better as a mesh. So I'm going to go back into adjust curve, press V a couple of times till, let's get NURBS, and we could actually shift scroll to choose how far we advance it for the spline order. So maybe something like that, and then we could just slap it with level of subdivision. But if we Alt V, look at the wireframe, we see that, you know, we're making terrible mistakes. So I'm gonna press V, V, and this is what we're going to be working with. And I'm telling you, it could be easy to just deal with curves, but it literally is not. It literally is easier to deal with a mesh. For example, I'm just going to rip this off into its own mesh, and then let's try the same operation, but, you know, thinking in terms of vertices. And then always knowing that, hey, we can turn it into a curve at the end, because vertices are just curves. Well, they're not. They're just vertices. But, I mean, Blender doesn't know, or Blender does know. Blender knows exactly what it is, and that's why it's able to turn into whatever you need it to. You know, just some of the basic Blender fundamentals. So, let's look at the other side, and I'm just going to delete. Press E. Let's press S. We'll press E again, scale it in, and just merge it last. Recently I had a commenter accuse me of working for a social media company. You know, I just gotta definitely say that I've never worked for one, and I probably wouldn't. Like, I don't trust them. I worked for a telecommunications company, and I was doing tech support, you know, which is like the most grunt work there is. You know, I've mentioned that in older videos, so just to clear the air on that, I don't want people thinking that I worked for Facebook or something. I do have friends that managed to get in, but that has nothing to do with me. You know, Facebook is one of those platforms. I always talk about how I want to delete it, but, you know, being an entity, I definitely can't. I have to keep it around because business purposes. However, you know, that doesn't mean that I have to go on there and express what's in my heart and say, like, I love this and this happened to me and oh my god, this tragedy and that sort of stuff. You know, I try to avoid any sort of footprint on social media. You know, people worry about their carbon footprint. I worry about my data footprint, because I'm telling you, the machines, they can find out so much about us. You know, whenever we got cats, we were presented with the finest in litter box technology, and as a result, the cats have the greatest litter boxes ever conceived. Not complaining about it, you know, that's a case where it's actually good. You know, we were actually seeking the best litter box for these cats because they were literally bombing anything that they were given, and also they were fighting each other, so it was a complicated situation. So now that we're back in curves, we're just extruding, but yeah, I just wanted to address that one thing because I found it funny. I was like, wow, I hope people don't think that I work for the big Facebook. And also, if I did work for Facebook, they would probably treat me like Fleshlight did, where they'd be like, hey, shut up and go fold boxes. You know, I tried to tell Fleshlight, I was like, hey man, I'm a 3D modeler, one day I'll be good. They were like, yo, shut up and go fold boxes. It's like, ooh, terrible. But, you know, that'd be life, dude. Sometimes you gotta shut up and just go fold boxes. But that job was terrible. The best thing that ever happened with that job was actually being let go. But I do see that they have an ad where they're looking for a ZBrush artist, so I would dare not apply and be working in the adult toy industry. However, I bet in these pandemic times they are moving units, you know. A lot of lonely people not dying of corona out there, you know. So just going to tab into edit mode, and we're just going to grab this and move it over because I do want to work this, you know, little black thing in. But also as we're working, we're just kind of renegotiating these points because, you know, maybe we don't need certain points, but that's just basically how I go back and forth between meshes and curves. And, you know, at the end, I just have a curve, dense it up, give it some subdivision, call it a day until it's time to actually deal with it. And while I'm stalling for time, I'm looking at this like, what the hell shape is this? You know, literally, this is just we're just knocking this thing off of a list. Like, I'm looking at this thing and I'm just like disgusted because, you know, real world stuff is just so boring. Like, seriously, I'm gonna have to come back and do a motorcycle. or motorcycle parts and accessories. You know, I'm always concerned about the amount of time that YouTube videos take. So I'm definitely going to try to do more extended content in the future. But it is no use doing it in the current form that I am now. It's completely inefficient, just saying. You know, no one's watching it. The views are terrible. But that's the best, you know, I'm telling you. I don't even say in videos, hey, like and subscribe. Because if you like this channel, you know what to do. You don't need me to tell you. All you need me to tell you is which hotkey to press, I guess. You know, we're just going to remove that or release that sharp so that way we can... And I wonder why theirs look the way it does and mine looks the way it does. You know, because we're definitely going to have to encompass it. So I'm thinking something like that. And this thing looks like it is... What shape is this? Just can't tell. Just optical illusions. I'm telling you, my saying is, if you model from a reference, you're already wrong. You're already wrong, and you're always wrong. Oh, let's just redo it. You know, I can't be having these areas look crazy. They haunt me. You know, even after the videos, I just stand at the computer and, you know, listen to some music and pace around the model, pace around the office and panic at the model. Just wonder, oh man, am I capable of doing what comes next? In this case, it is literally the same thing we just did. You know, we're just gonna keep the same roundness and just ignore that this thing looks like a freaking optical illusion. You know, I got no time for that. I'm telling you, with modeling, you gotta draw the line somewhere because this mesh, I'm trying to think of the right terms for it, but you know, these meshes will have you chasing hallucinations, and it's not pretty and it's not fun and it's a waste of damn time, and no one should have to do that. But I'm telling you, I've lost so many hours chasing hallucinations that it's ridiculous. It's like my thing. I'm like a ghost hunter. I hunt things in blurry images, solve their mysteries, you know. Let's bevel this in. Let's press J. We'll press J here as well. We're just going to bring this up and enable Vertex Snapping. Let's also take this time to mirror to the other side, and we see that, you know, it's just poorly reinforced. So because we're using sharp markings, which is just way easier than adding topological reinforcement edges, but I do have my reasons, we will just go in and just mark it manually because we don't want S sharpen to mess it up. Sometimes an automated solution isn't the best solution. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you just want to be heavy-handed. You know, beat it down. Which, you know, there's a million videos of me just getting in here and just bulldogging these meshes, man. But, you know, I figured we could actually do some content talking about some different cases. So let's right click, subdivide. I'm going to press J. Let's mirror this to the other side, and we see that it's almost holding together, except that it either holds or, you know, we could put a triangulate and we wouldn't even be having this discussion right now. But let's just pull out. Look at this. And I mean, what is this? This thing's a thermos. This thing is literally duplicated down here. And congratulations, guys. We made a... I'm gonna have to Google or search up what type of piston this is. I'm gonna pause the video, do it, and then come back and start using the scientific terms for it. Just kidding. Not trying to be one of those people. So I'm gonna make it look like this one, which looks more interesting, which is just it extended. Could that even come out that far? Yes. So we are doing all right there. So let's get up on this baby, and I thought I was adding a loop. Maybe I added a loop on the inside. We're just going to pretend like we didn't do that. Don't even bother undoing it because, meh. EM macro, and we're just pushing it in. Except we can't see how far we're pushing it in because we're pushing it so far, but I did see it come up in the center. And let's just sharp mark it. And just looking at it, you know, is this piece bigger? It almost looks like it's bigger. It looks like it's like bowing out, but it's not. This thing is definitely a piston and not like a tree. So let's just pull back and look at what we have. And it looks like we were able to do this in about 20 minutes. So I'm just going to call this piston. And this is piston 05, but in video chronology, it is piston 3. So from here, you know, in the other piston that I didn't actually even texture it, so I feel bad about that. I mean, not real bad, but, you know, I feel I could have textured it. I mean, in the viewport, in Blender at least. You know, it's always good to have a nice Blender render, you know, just to look at. Okay, I know what I'm looking at here. We want to alt scroll our bevel in order to, actually let's press L so we bevel the right edges, and it looks like we marked all the sides of the cylinder inside. We don't want to do that. We want something like that. And for this one we did the same thing. Like, I've been going really light on cylinders. You know, that's a critique I've received from a lot of famous artists, is that on cylinders and round things, sometimes I simplify them on my breakdowns to something a little too egregious. And you know, it just hit me again with today's model is tomorrow I will have to, or tonight or whenever I record the video, I'll have to go in and actually adjust the circles and apply level subdivision in order to maintain its curvature, because without the curvature, it's no good. Alright, looking a little heavy, but we're just setting this up for the render. And I'm just going to draw a box. We will press X in order to split it. And I'm going to select this, and we're just going to hit it with blank material. We're going to hit this with a blank material. We don't even know what these blank materials are. In fact, this object and this object, we will share the same blank materials, and we'll just use Decal Machine for the decals. Let's hit this with a blank material and hit this with a blank material. We want these to share the same material as this one. And so this is my favorite part. I love hitting things with blank materials and just setting the stage and then jumping over into Look Dev and seeing what my results are, because sometimes I'll get the perfect material for everything. Sometimes I'll just get, you know, rough starting points. Like this almost looks like what we're dealing with here. So what I'm going to do is press Alt M, shift click material scroll, so we can replace every index that is in place that has it. And I'm thinking something like that. And we could actually go in and start messing with the material properties ourselves, you know, in order to just make it a little more rough. We're not trying to get perfect still, but this area we also want to deal with. So for its material, instead of scrolling through them, we can just go and make this thing dark, adjust the roughness. Let's look at the actual, looks a bit reflective. It looks like it has 2 layers of reflectivity. You know, one's a little, you know, broad, and then there's like a clear coat, or at least that's what I'm seeing in this image. I am often one to hallucinate and see things in images that aren't there, so that's one of these cases. All I could say is, it happens. So let's save our file, because I'm going to shift click material scroll, but we're going to press T to go to car paint, and car paint will either crash or it will work. And so, you know, we're just going to scroll till we get something vibrant and close, something like that. And then we can actually locate the color area. When it comes to the car paint, it's a really interesting system for how it's constructed, but you know, we maybe don't even need the exact color, but I'm just looking for the brightness, and I'm going to press Alt VV so that way we can find a different environment. We'll press V to look at it without the environment present, and it's just now beginning to get real hot in here. So one moment. Now that it's a little more cool, I'm looking at this and I don't like the vibrancy of the orange, so we're just going to jump over to shading, and because this thing is completely self-contained, we're just going to get in here and forget about it. Let us just add a blank material to get us started, and it looks like we already have a jackpot on our hands. After we lower the metallicity, we could change this to something a little more vibrant. You know, I'm just so partial to red. However, we'll fall back to orange just because anyone who watches me and knows me well enough will be like, oh yeah, that guy's gonna go for red. Not a blood or anything, I just like the color red. Looking at this one, I do see that it is flat on the inside. Let's pretend like our client actually cared and they were like, hey man, I need that to be red, or you're not getting paid, you know, you're a hack, you know, all the usual stuff a client will hit you with. So we will just get in here and just dissolve an edge, mark sharp. And when it comes to my mark settings, I have it set to basically apply everything whenever we mark things. So instead of just pressing Control E and hitting all of these options that I would normally hit all over and over and over and over, which is seriously not any way to live, we just do something that's a little more simple, like the foundation of HardOps. But anyways, I'm not getting into that in this video. We're getting in here and just making the changes that are required because we have a client breathing down our neck. Hypothetical, of course. We will go ahead and mark this as dark, lower the roughness, and I'm going to add a bevel to this one as well. I mean, we're really just walling out. My goal with all these parts is to slowly get back to my previous workflow of just, you know, bulldogging these meshes. I guess that's the proper term. Let's press N, and in my N panel, I'm looking for the machine tab because Blender hates us. We can't even read these dang tabs because there's so many of them. You know, it's a warning from Blender. Don't have too many add-ons installed. Just enough. Just your favorites. We want to basically put our decals in the active collection. Otherwise, we have to use Unify, which, you know, one mistake done, one thing done now can save us headache in the future. Another thing too is we could use Decal Machine and have some fun with it. For example, where is it at? We want to use create decal info text, and I'm just going to type in what that says. Except we're going to type in hollow mitro because I love the band Mitro. And we'll click on create info decal, and we accidentally created it in white. But I am very happy about the fact that you can just create text objects inside of Decal Machine. I mean, it's one of the small things, but I'm telling you, when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's awesome. Because it makes them as decals. And also, I have a vendetta against the default Blender text. It's just too much for me. So let's press D, but I'm in Boxcutter. And by looking at project, we want to shift click in order to shrink wrap it, and maybe forget about that. Let's press D and just do a general project. You know, I was going to try shrink wrapping, but sometimes life is too short for such things. And for these, we're just going to, actually, I want to make this smaller. I bet we can get this to fit this a little bit better, because stretching it all the way around and having it go to a completely different side, just not in my destiny for tonight. I'm going to Shift C to place my cursor in the center, Shift A to insert a circle. And I don't know why I entered edit mode for this circle. Also, what kind of circle is that? Let's Shift A, curve. Let's insert this circle, because the circle we were just looking at, we won't talk about that, but that was not our circle. I mean our normal Blender circle. So I'm adding all these loop cuts so that I can select this decal, select this curve, Control P, curve deform. And in the F9 we see that we don't have any options for adjusting the axis or anything. So let's Control Z, and if we use Q we can use curve modifier, and then in the F9 we can actually roll the wheel until we get the option we want inside the F9. So a lot of stuff that we do is just small quality of life corrections on Blender, just because I got driven crazy by not having an axis. Like if I ever could request anything from Blender, it would just be small stuff. It'd be stuff like that, you know, just make sculpt support F on everything. I mean, make sketch support F on everything, you know, as far as scaling brushes. You know, whenever I'm working on the Wacom and I'm trying to draw stuff, I end up having to reach over to keyboard, which is always an awkward thing, because I mean, reach over the screen to get to keyboard, which is always an awkward operation. Let's see. I'm just going to pick one that is somewhat close to what we're going for. It doesn't have to be exactly accurate. We're not doing a whole mosh to this thing. Don't want big piston rolling on my door. This one seems slightly appropriate. Sort of. You know, we won't read into it too close. But I do love taking these decals and actually playing with the metallicity just to get a different look out of them. Like, I wish I could have metallicity settings be pre-established on these before I even bring them in. For this piece, now that we have labels, it is apparent that we probably need to move this up a little bit closer to the top. This one's already close enough to the bottom. And looking at this symbol, that's a JRO image. Like, if I had the JRO pack, we'd probably have that, but JRO makes packs in sets of like 500 decals, and that's just too much for me. You know, send me 25 of your best, but you know, 500, I'll never go through them. We'll spend all day loading them, and then I'll pick one, and then forget about the rest of them, and be like, you know, if I make a spaceship, I'm coming back for that puppy. But you know, love your work, JRO. You know, stop making such mega packs. You're breaking the universe. We're gonna go with, you know, there's nothing close to what we need. So I'm going to just go with this one. You know, we'll end up getting a little sci-fi with it in the end anyway. So let's just deproject. We'll jump to metallic. Lower our roughness. And we are good to go. So I'm going to select this piece. Press QOT to use the Q menu, Operations, and 2Shape. And while we're inside of 2Shape, we can press spacebar and bring up a plane. And Control scroll in order to place our plane below. And let's just begin scaling this up. And just look it through some various blank materials, just so we can end this on a good note. The last one we just left off on the modeling, and this one we were able to be done so fast that might as well have some fun with it. So whenever it comes to my viewport, I'm a big fan of having my focal length be something like 120, so you know, things are not so, you know, stern. And let's press Alt VV to find just the right way to present this. You know, that one actually looks kind of cool. And geez, this thing still looks so boring. I might have to spend like 15 minutes just like going bananas. You know, if you watch American Dad, you know, don't go bananas, Steve. That's gonna be me. I'm just gonna go bananas on this thing. And let's press Alt VB just to scroll blank light. Blank light is one of my favorites. With it, we're able to just scroll through random iterations of lights that is set to kind of a predefined system of constraints that ensures that at least each setup is somewhat usable, you know, not just completely random. And you can also reduce if you want certain types of lights showing up. Like, for example, you could have just, in this case, we have just one area light, and it turns out all we needed was just one area light. And so I'm just going to Shift A, add a camera, Control Alt Numpad 0 in order to focus it on this. With our camera selected, we can go in the Q menu and also set its focal length to 120. And because this is a piston, I will render it at a 1000 by 2000. And then we can just zoom in, press Q, adjust our PP. And we don't actually have to see all of these lines. That's where extras comes in. So just by turning off 3D cursor, extras, relationship lines, grid, floor, X and Y, we can get a pretty quiet viewport for us to really get to a nice result without having to think a lot about what's going on in the background. So with that, we have at least got to the end of this. However, I still see curves, so let's also turn off curves from being visible. And just like that, we have now got to our final result. So really, that's all I see in this image. This thing's a thermos. You know, you could probably pick this thing up and just drink the hydraulic fluid out of it. But enough hydraulic piston comedy. With that, we will end this segment. So before we progress on to the next part, I want to select this label, and I love being able to press Ctrl Tilde to go into helper, disconnect the color from the info area, from the base color area of the decal, change the color to be black, more like our reference image, and then we could just adjust the roughness just from the comfort of the helper. So it's important to not pack things too deep, which was an issue that we saw earlier. I'm going to select this Bezier circle, and let us try actually moving the circle, but it appears that because we have them not present, actually that wasn't it. We need to select both, and we could just bring this up for our hollow mitro, which is already kind of a spin on the actual one that we're making. Also, if we scale it up, we can just be a little bit bigger with this, and now we can talk about making it ours, because right now it is it is the version that we saw in the image. However, like I said, there's always a time when we can just kind of go on our own way with things and have fun. So first, let's clean up our scene a little bit, because this is good for a render, but let's say that we're continuing the party. I am just going to select the light empty, and let's also select the light inside. It's only one light. We can select that. We can select the floor. We're going to move this to a new collection called _SCN, which is just something that I just have still been doing from my time in Unity. It just was a good idea, presented by someone named Chris Bonner, and I've just been doing it ever since, of just working in the SCN format. I don't know if he explicitly told me to work the way that I work now, but in the process of trying to appease him, it was a system I came up with that is quite effective for me. So we're going to just call this original. Alternative will be extra crispy. Let's duplicate this. Sorry, I had a tongue twist there. We'll move this to a new collection. We'll just call this, spin 1, just because we're having a spin on this. And we still have our original, just in case you're a purist. In case you're a purist and you want the original one, there you go. But we are going to go to this one that has everything duplicated and look at things, and we're just going to, just party with it. Just a little randomness. One of the things I was thinking is at the base of the cylinder, we definitely want more happening when it comes to cut lines. I just can't help it. I always have to add cut lines to stuff whenever it comes to designs, even if they don't logically make sense. After looking at how these things are assembled and all of that, we don't want to go too crazy, but definitely a few cut lines just here and there, just keep things real tasteful. Let's just sharpen, which will get that looking absolutely correct. And I'm thinking about grabbing this and pressing Shift, S, and Z just to bring it out a little bit, just for something like that. And let's have some fun with this. So I'm going to select this and this. Let's press Q, and we're going to hit it with a circle. C, E, C, and I might have to actually go back and modify the beginning. I forgot. I shouldn't be complaining in videos. I apologize. I was complaining in the beginning about these assets being boring. I should always be grateful for any amount of ease that an asset gives me. For jobs are always just cursed assets. And concept art, it's like, hey, I need you to make this concept art. It's like, what did they draw this with? This thing is impossible to read. But that'd be life, man. Concept art, and a lot of it, that's definitely how you break yourself in as far as becoming proficient in 3D. Cannot recommend it enough. It's like a rite of passage to basically, get in there and learn by modeling concept art. My favorite, as I've mentioned in the past, is Creature Box. However, just go on Artstation, and there's just so many glorious concept artists with names that you can't even pronounce because they're written in characters that aren't on a keyboard. And just give it a model. You know, concept artists love seeing their stuff made in 3D. They also love receiving credit. So make sure that you credit them. You know, there's no shame in actually crediting a concept artist. In fact, it's probably best. But it is kind of a thing that I see happen a lot, where someone will post a piece of art and, you know, everyone will just be like, yo, what's up with this guy? So we're just gonna mark these as sharp just so we have a very strict top. And you know, I think I'm almost done with going crazy on this thing, except I'm not. You know, we could always just shift click EM macro whenever it comes to these sort of shapes. You know, we have tools for doing things kind of analog, which is what you see me doing here. You know, the alternative is that we could just be adding booleans and dealing with inset and talking about inset and fighting boolean problems, or we can get in with a little EM macro and just push the mesh around, which is what the mesh really wants. The mesh just wants to be pushed a little bit. I'm going to grow this, and we are going to unmark everything, remark it, and remark these, because things got a little crazy with us sharpening it. And now that we have this happening, that means we can actually bring this up, bring this down, just start creating basically a surface differential. And yeah, I think we can leave it at that for now, except, you know, maybe a little further, you know, maybe even a boolean or two. You know, just one boolean won't hurt, right? Like, you won't tell anybody, right? If I put one boolean here, we can just keep it as our little secret. Just something like that, you know, really innocent. And we see that because it's a weight, it placed the boolean after the bevel, which is just perfect for Boxcutter. I remember when we had that added, users were probably like, why? That's why, right there. Just great. So we're going to ever scroll, bring that back, and then we're going to do a bool shift to actually shift this into a different piece. And let's just add a different material to it, you know, maybe a brand new one via blank material. So this is now what our piston looks like. Let's see what it looks like in the render. And we didn't go too hard on it. You know, the goal was to keep things somewhat grounded in reality with it, but you know, definitely to stray from our reference image a little bit, because just being so adherent to images is just, I'm telling you, it feels like work now, which is why I keep clocking in every day. Like I said, I never stop a job. My goal is to work a job until it ends. So, hello again, guys. So maybe something like that, and then we look at 2, 1, and we could also probably go a little bit further with some decals. You know, there's a couple of just classic gems that we could hit this thing with. For example, the Mr. Rad Kit is my favorite decal series because of just the sharpness. This guy was just really nuts about the sharpness that he made his decals in, and so as a result, I just go for it all the time, because no one ever asking questions about his decals, except whose decals are those? You know, the right question. They're Mr. Rat's decals. I believe that we locked our translation, yes. And we locked our rotation. Machine's crazy. Needs to unlock that stuff. Let's press D, adjust. And I think I need to update my decal machine, which is why that I keep having issues whenever it comes to adjusting my decals. I'm pretty sure that I'm behind. Let's go under displays. We'll make adjustments to it as well. I'm not even going to fight the other one. We'll just duplicate it ourselves and then bring it over. You know, another thing that I actually enjoy a lot in Decal Machine as well is Decal Slice. So let's just give it a try. Just random try. You know, I do this all the time with the team. I'm like, random tool tests, and you know, just find out if things just working out. And of course, Machine ain't messing around. I expect Slice to work. It's a mainstay. So now we have just a little bit of cut lines happening. Just added a little bit of detail to it. You know, nothing major. Alright, there's 2 decals sitting there. And, you know, an easy mistake to make as a beginner is having your decals be like focal areas of your image and just make the image what it is. You don't want that. You want to let your decals accentuate it, but you know, they're just a tertiary thing. Don't make them focal. Don't build your whole scene out of them. I mean, you can, sure, have at it, but you know, the parallax breaking is something that you definitely want to avoid. And so I find that, you know, you can definitely keep your parallax in check the best just by keeping your scale in check, and always be vigilant as far as judging your decals, because sometimes you'll do like a mesh change or something like that and just not be aware, and literally just have decals floating in space because, you know, they weren't parented or whatever the case may be, because you're working like me. You're just going around pasting things like a lazy, I'm trying to think of the best word. I don't know if you can call people chuds, but yeah, just jumping around like a lazy chud. And you know, one of my favorite decals is the one that says machine made. Like, I used to use this thing all the time. However, my favorite one is also this cube one made by Paul Lazowski. Like, I'd slap that thing on everything because it literally means like, yo, this was made from a cube, which I don't know, just sounds pretty fun. Here we go, Decal Machine. So we're just going to slap this baby right here. Project. Always good to have a decal of your own logo, or some way to print your own logo, just so, you know, users can show their spirit, like, woo, Decal Machine. But I'm a very big fan of Decal Machine. And it's because slapping a decal is like a million times easier than a boolean. And I never would have thought of it. You know, Machine just came out of nowhere with it. Like, when I saw it, I was like, oh my god, these aren't booleans. You'd think I would be afraid, but I was just way excited. Because booleans are so expensive. There's no doubt about it, you guys. They're expensive, they're hard. I mean, maybe not too hard, but, you know, they do definitely require a little bit of understanding. And I definitely see users doing better and better, which gives me more hope. Let's array this. Array v2 is a work of art to me. I love array v2. You know, I can't ever take victory laps on things because there's always more work to be done, right? Like, someone's going to speak up and be like, well, actually, it doesn't support the Alaskan keyboard standard of the Russian Federation or whatever. I don't know. Also, looking at this area, I mean, with decal, you just, I was going to go in pack 3, but I feel like for pack 3, maybe something like this could work. You know, just getting a little bit of breakup happening. You know, we also probably want to have some nice screws happening up here. So, of course, Mr. Rad, you're back again. Back again, baby. So let's just mirror this over to the other side. Shift D. We want to pivot on our 3D cursor. RZ. And I think something like that will do the job. However, I did see this one kind of peek at me. You know, as I call it whenever decals start Z-slipping. They're like giving me a little peek. It's like, yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. You know, quote DMX, RIP. But yeah, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. So, you know, you need to grab my displace and show me what's up. You know, classic DMX. So if we look at 2, we have this, you know, more contemporary version, except we definitely need to move this to the proper area. So something like that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, or actually 2, 3. We could also turn off all of our visualization. So now that we have our SCN, if we shift C, we could just bring in a collection instance of our original, and there it is. We could also shift A and bring in a collection instance of our spin on it. So we just move this over, and we also see that we still got some slipping and falling and can't get up issues. What's going on? All right. You know, when you don't have anything on the screen, you know, it definitely becomes hard mode, or at least zero UI mode, which is like a thing in games now. Games now be coming out without any UI. Let's also get out the pivot point of our 3D cursor, but we just want to get them both positioned together just so we can especially look at the one that was made by Decal Machine, because that one looks sick. But you know, look at me giving my own model praise. How dare me. I'll lash myself after the video. Like I said, victory laps are expressly forbidden around us here at Team C. So let's Control S, save our file, and just like that, we've made our third piston. If we wanted to animate it going up and down, you know we could, without a doubt. You know, are you challenging me? Are you challenging me to make these go up and down? You know, we're at the 16th minute. I bet we could have it done by the 20th minute. Let's first go to this one. We're going to turn on all of our visualizations and X, Y. Maybe go back to grayscale mode. Let's Shift A. We're going to add an empty of a sphere. Let's right click and adjust the size of our sphere. We're going to add a script to the Z, or a driver. So I'm going to press pound or COS, open parentheses, frame times 0.14, close parentheses, press enter. And now we have an empty that will go up and down forever. So that's that, you know. So this thing, you already know. And we actually want to put a constraint. You know, you think I would parent it and call it a day, be done in the 17th minute, but we're going to party all the way until the end. So transformation, we got to grab our empty. You know, I have videos talking about this stuff in depth, but we're going to keep it world for now. Location, and where are we going with this? -1 plus -1 1. So -9. Oh, -0.9 to -9, and we want to map this on the location on the Z. And let's see, how low did it go? Okay, so it went about that low. Let's see how it comes out. Now we have this piston being worked. Kind of dirty, but you know, that's how it happens, guys. And also, you gotta be more mature. You know, when I used to work at Fleshlight, they had all these products with dirty, funny names. However, I was never able to have a chuckle at it. Also, the company was just not funny. It was just sex toys, you guys. But oh man, what did we just do? Oh, you know what it is we need to put this back to where it is correct, because we are doing bad things. But this is what we truly want, and we'll just apply the boolean, clear our parent, and now we see that everything is fine. So we are just going to just grab everything involved, parent it to this piece, and we're in the 18th minute. We have 1 minute left in this little micro challenge. And I'm going to select this piece, shift select the piece that's underneath that actually has the constraint that we want. Press spacebar, choose copy constraints to selected objects, and let's go to layer 3. And this is now our result for this layer. So if we go to layer 1, we now have this happening. So what if we wanted the opposite? Well, I'm going to copy this and we'll change it to a negative. And for this, we're just going to delete that. Okay, this one is kind of ridiculous. I'm just thinking about how we want to deal with that. Wait. Who is selected? This one's -9 to 0.9. That one looks fine. We have 20 seconds left on the clock. Why do we test ourselves like this? So let's actually put this back on minus. Set this one back to positive, and we're doing good so far. So maybe -2 3, +6. We just don't want them to be completely in unison because we look like losers. But something like that, a little more interesting. So with that, I can finally wrap up this video, and we reached our time deadline, exceeding it by about 8 seconds, but crucify me. Anyways, I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and I'm sorry, of course, about complaining at the beginning. There's always fun to be had, even in the boring, mundane objects. So complaining about something being easy is just, you know, I shouldn't do that. I'll get cursed by another helicopter, which I'm still working on helicopters now. Maybe someday when I'll get good enough at it to actually do a tutorial, but like I always say, my goal is definitely not to do videos on things that I'm unqualified for, because then I'll get attacked by Helicopter McGee. But with a piston, a little more negotiable. So with that, we can wrap this video up. Thank everyone for watching. I'll see you guys next time.